In this exercise, it assumes that we have already done a bank reconciliation, I believe. Um, but the whole point of this exercise is that when you do a bank reconciliation, all these items that you're trying to reconcile, if you don't um, do adjusting entries on your books, then you might as well not even do a bank reconciliation. So it says prepare the adjusting entries that Austin Clinic must record as a result of preparing the bank reconciliation. So we'll read through these each of these different items and ask the question, does this item affect the books? And if it affects the books, we need to make some kind of adjusting entry. So A, let's see, outstanding checks as of June 30th total 2283. Outstanding checks are something that we already know about because we wrote the checks, and they ought to be reflected in our cash balance. But the bank doesn't know about them. So the question is, do we have to do an adjusting entry for them? The answer is no, we don't. So A, we don't do any kind of adjusting entry for it because we know about them, banks doesn't know about them, but let's go on to the next item. B, the June 30th bank statement included a $55 debit memo for service charges. The bank statement knows about it, therefore the bank knows about it. We don't know about it until we open our bank statement, so therefore this is something that has to be adjusted. So on our books, we're going to make a journal entry. Like I said, there's no entry required. On B, we're going to debit miscellaneous expense. That's really what your textbook wants you to do. In the real world, you would debit bank service charges because miscellaneous expenses are too vague of a term, and you're trying to get exactly what happened. So I would have put right here, like I said, bank service charges. But don't do it on your homework. You want to put miscellaneous expenses down because that's what the book wants you to do. All right, that's B. So we're going to debit miscellaneous expense and we're going to credit cash, and that's going to lower our cash down, getting it closer to what it should be to the reconciled balance. Let's go to C. Check number 919 listed with the canceled checks was correctly drawn for $479 in payment of a utility bill on June the 15th. Austin Clinic, that's who our company is, Austin Clinic, mistakenly recorded it with a debit to utility expense and a credit to cash for $517. So we've written a check that was correctly drawn for $479, but we recorded it for $517. Therefore, we need to make an adjustment to our cash account, and we've taken out too much. That is, we should have only taken out $479. I lost my cursor. There we go. We should have only taken out $479, and instead we wrote the check and took down our bank account down by $517. So we need to add this back. So we're going to, in C, we're going to debit cash for $38. That's the difference between the $479 and the $517. And we're going to credit or reduce utility expense by $38. So that's C. Then in D, the June 30th cash receipts of $23.45 were placed in the bank's night depository after banking hours and were not recorded on the June 30th bank statement. Okay, this is something that we know about. The bank doesn't know about it. So if we know about it already, we don't have to make any kind of journal entry. Part E, the June 30th bank statement included a $39 debit memo for NSF check by Tiny Tim. NSF checks are checks where we thought the money was good when we were getting a check. It turns out there's not any money behind that. There's no money in their bank account or not enough money. Therefore, the bank returns it to us, and we have to lower our cash on hand by, in this case, $39 for this NSF check. The bank already knows about it because it was in the bank statement. We don't know about this yet, so we're going to do the following entry. There's no entry for D, but for E, there's this entry. We're going to reduce cash by $39, and that makes with all the rest of these, that makes our cash on hand in our account now agree with our reconciled bank statement. And we're going to set back up an accounts receivable for Tiny Tim for $39 because we thought his check was good. And this kind of entry in the real world would also have some kind of service charges tacked to it, so forth, so on, and maybe a return check fee. But we're going to ignore all that, and all we're going to do is set back up what he originally wrote the check for, which is $39. And we're probably going to call him and say, hey, your check was no good. Can you put the money in the bank or send us another check for $39? And if you make these entries, then your cash account will agree with your reconciled bank account, and I believe we're done with this one.